When the surety has undertaken liability on certain terms, it is expected that they will remain unchanged during the whole period of guarantee. The result of this concern of courts for the surety's interest is that a surety is held discharged when without his consent the creditor makes any change in the nature or terms of his contract with the principal debtor. Section 133 of the Indian Contract Act incorporates the principle. The section reads as, any variance made without the surety's consent in the terms of the contract between the principal debtor and creditor discharges the surety as to future transactions subsequent to the variation. The section may be explained by the following illustrations. First, A becomes surety to C for B's conduct as a manager in C's bank. Afterwards, B and C contract without A's consent, the B's salary shall be raised and that shall become liable for 1/4 of the losses on overdrafts. B allows a customer to overdraw and the bank loses a sum of money. A is discharged from his suretyship by the variance made without his consent and is not liable to make good this loss. Second, C contracts to lend B Rs 5,000 on 1st March. A guarantees repayment. C pays the Rs 500 to B on 1st January. A is discharged from his liability as the contract has been varied, in as much as C might sue B for the money before the 1st of March. The surety could not be called on to make good the loss as the fresh agreement was a substitution of a new agreement for the former which discharged the surety. In the case of Bonner v. MacDonald, the court held that the defendant guaranteed the conduct of a manager of a bank. The bank afterwards raised his salary on the condition that he would be liable for the 1/4 of losses on discounts allowed by him. No communication of this new arrangement was made to the surety. The manager allowed a customer to overdraw his account and the bank lost a sum of money. The court in this case held that the surety could not be called on to make good the loss as the fresh agreement was a substitution of new agreement for the former which discharged the surety. The sureties in a number of cases were held by the court to be discharged from liability. For example, in a case where the payment of rent was guaranteed and the rent was increased without the consent of surety, the surety was held to be discharged from liability. In another case, the creditor on default of payment took a promissory note from the principal debtor without reference to the surety. The surety was held to be discharged from liability. In a situation where the alteration was not prejudicial to the interest of the surety, can surety be discharged from liability? The problem of this sort was solved by the court in case of Anirudhan v. Thomco's Bank. The facts of the case are the defendant guaranteed the repayment of the loan of Rs 20,000 given to the plaintiff bank to the principal debtor. The guarantee paper showed the loan to be Rs 25,000. The bank refused to accept. The principal then reduced the amount of Rs 20,000 without intimating the surety, gave it to the bank which was then accepted. The principal debtor failed to pay and bank sued the surety. The court in this case held by majority that the surety was not discharged. It may be submitted that this decision does not appear to be logical interpretation of Section 133. According to Section 133, any variance in the contract made without surety's consent discharges the surety. The Act does not draw any distinction between the variance beneficial or prejudicial to the surety in material particulars as compared to original one. If the terms of the contract are changed, the person who signed the original contract cannot be made liable either on the basis of the original contract, because that has been destroyed by alteration, or on the basis of altered contract, because he never agreed to that. Now let's discuss effect of decree against surety. In the case of Charan Singh v. Security Finance Private Limited, the creditor obtained a decree both against principal debtor and surety, making them collectively and severely liable to pay the amount to the decree holder. He then entered into settlement with principal debtor, agreeing to accept from him favor amounts and not to enforce decree against him for the balance. The surety claimed discharge on this basis. The court did not agree with him. Once the liability is converted into decree debt, the earlier terms of the underlying contract cease to be applicable. The subsequent dealing with the principal debtor does not operate to discharge the surety from a liability under which he is no longer liable as a surety but under the decree.